Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this 25th of April. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information on weather.gov/Alaska or by calling us on the weather info line at 800-472-0391. You can find us during the day on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Around 4 o'clock, you'll get your daily afternoon map briefing there and a sneak peek at what we're going to talk about on the Alaska Weather Show. For right now, at least until midnight, a wind advisory is posted for the eastern Alaska range. We're going to see some stronger gusts blowing there, 55 to about 60 miles per hour at times at their strongest. Those winds will continue through the evening and, let's say evening hours, because we said it would stop at midnight, right? So we don't want to take that into the morning. We'll stop it at midnight. Wind advisory there for the eastern Alaska range. And again, look for some stronger gusts for the next several hours there. That's all we have going on in town. There are some stronger winds out over the marine areas, but all of that is pushing warm air inland. And as you may have noticed, there's been a lot of changes across the southern and southwestern rivers. Many of them are wide open at this point, or at least mostly open, maybe even some open. But most of them south of the Alaska Range have seen significant changes, and those changes are starting to work their way in from Dawson City toward Eagle there. We're continuing to see some pictures there from our friends in Eagle. They're showing that more and more water and coming up as the changes are seen around Eagle, and we expect that to propagate downriver, of course. So watch for changes in the next week or so, for sure, along Alaska's largest river there. So pretty impressive stuff. Anytime you want to track the breakup map yourself, you can easily do that at weather.gov/APRFC, or if you want to type it all out, you can do it this way, aprfc.arh.noaa.gov. APRFC, of course, stands for Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. I think I got that right. And, of course, they are the ones that are conducting River Watch now on the Yukon. As far as I know, the Kuskokwim River Watch team has done. They're all finished. They are done with the River Watch for the Kuskokwim at this point, thanks to all the ice being gone. So pretty quick and somewhat easy changes, as we have seen across most of southern and southwestern Alaska so far, but we're not done yet. Make sure you keep up to date with the latest River Watch information. And it's critical that you participate in the process. Tell us what you're seeing on the trail and in your village. You can do that on NWS Alaska. You can do that on Twitter, NWSAPRFC. You can give them a call at 800-847-1739 or email them, that's fine, nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov. And all that information, of course, just a click away at weather.gov/APRFC. And that's how you and your village can participate in River Watch. And, of course, maybe they'll stop by your village as well. So make sure you go out and tell them what you're seeing. Here's a look at the visible satellite picture. We're now far enough along in the process of the year that we can actually use this for most of our frames here on the show. And boy, do I love this, because this really tells the truth from top down. And you can see a lot of the low clouds across the Yukon Valley today, and certainly across south central and into southeast, where clouds are fairly thick. Just offshore and out over the middle of the Gulf, a lot of dry air still rotating around low pressure. You can see a few areas of the cloud streets there, and a lot of the low clouds moving over what's left of the ice. You see this kind of rough pattern shaped in the ice there, or in the cloud structure. That's what we're looking at here is a satellite picture, but the satellite doesn't know the difference between clouds, fog, snow, and ice in the sea. And there's really not a whole lot left. We'll see here in just a little while that the sea ice picture is greatly diminished, greatly changed from just a couple weeks ago, and it's going to continue to change. But this is one of the main sections of ice that's still lingering out over the Bering. We'll watch this one more time. You'll even be able to see it move. As you look out across the eastern sections of the Alcan and out toward Northway and Dawson City, we also saw some very bright white clouds developing earlier today. If you thought you heard a little bit of thunder and lightning, well, probably did. At least a couple strikes there before I left the office to come over for the show today, with a wave of low pressure developing just north and east of the Alaska Range. With the heat in place, with the clouds in place, with the changes we're seeing across the region, it is not unheard of that there could have been a little bit of thunder and lightning out there today, and there could be more in the next couple days. One of the areas we're going to watch is out here across southwestern Alaska, probably just a shower, maybe a storm or two out around Aniak and northward toward the Yukon Valley. In that area, though, spot shower storms possible, and on Wednesday, similar conditions could develop again as we're seeing today, north of Northway and out toward Dawson. So things to watch. Changes are coming, and boy, is it about time for summer when you see that kind of stuff. Here's a look at the infrared satellite picture again. So this is kind of drawing our clouds on with more of a thermometer approach. We look for the colder air, and we assume some of that is clouds. That's just a really quick and dirty version of what the infrared satellite picture is, but in this case you can see a lot more moisture working towards southeast and south central, a lot of dry air north of the Yukon, and a lot of that moisture is moving out across the west coast. Over the course of the next few days, we'll see this weather pattern pretty much stay put. We have low pressure lingering across the southern Gulf, and a lot of this wind and moisture is wrapping over the top of it, all due to faster moving winds across southern Alaska blowing from east to west. As that continues to work in more southerly flow across the Gulf of Alaska, not expecting much to change, warm conditions will probably prevail. And here's our weather pattern today, a 974 millibar low in the western Gulf with low pressure working up across Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula. You have another extension of this wave out across the central and western Gulf at 992 millibars, but the air out across the Bering is much more stable. Sometimes it's a little bit on the clear side. You can see a lot of low stratus and fog out across the western Bering. But once again, a lot of this is ice, and the actual satellite picture they're showing huge areas of open water now, south and west of St. Lawrence Island and Nunivak Island, and Norton Sound is sea ice free at this point. You heard that right. Out across the Brooks Range, snow is seen on the visible satellite picture here, and we've got holes around Kotzebue Sound. Pockets of light snow and fog seen across the Chukchi Seacoast, all the way out toward the Beaufort Seacoast, where clouds are a little bit higher today. And here's our low pressure system around Northway to Eagle. Right around it here is where we saw that lightning strike there and a little bit of cloud development earlier on. As we move through tonight, the frontal boundary will work up across the north and eastern parts of the Gulf with light rain expected, and there might be some strong and gusty winds working through the inner channels over the next 24 hours there. So if you're going out from port tonight or perhaps going flying tomorrow, keep that in mind. You want to get a good look on the weather as you get out and ready to go for tomorrow morning, especially as the winds could be fairly strong in some areas during the midday hours. As we get out into the evening and overnight, get into Tuesday afternoon, rain will still be possible. Notice how that pressure gradient relaxes a little bit there over southeast. That's important. As we go into Cook Inlet and Shelikof Strait, the winds will be a little blustery at times. And then north of the Yukon, it's cold enough that we could still see some light snow showers there. And here's our opportunity for a brief thunderstorm across some parts of the lower Yukon Valley there. Low pressure south of Adak and Atka, 975 millibars, will move the winds around in different ways as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. As this is moving eastward, your winds out west are going to start coming around from the north and west a little bit stronger. So watch for those changes in your marine forecast in a bit. And across the north coast in the Chukchi Sea and the Beaufort Sea, we're still watching for some areas of fog and maybe some flurries there. A much better chance of that from about Prudhoe Bay westward toward Point Barrow and down toward Wainwright, and as you get into the Bering Strait region there, conditions should be drying up for Tuesday. Here's Wednesday, and not a whole lot of change up north there. Snow showers still in the region. Remember I said there was another area that we could see some isolated storm development. Some of that will be back along the Alcan border, generally east of the Tanana Valley, and probably from Eagle down toward Northway and into western sections of Yukon. So still watching that. Still a little bit on the outside chance at this point, and the threat looks to be fairly minimal, but it does look to be somewhat unstable. There's moisture in the area, and there's certainly an opportunity for that thunderstorm development to begin. It's that time of the year. As we look out across the central and northern sections of southeast, rainfall might become a little more spotty there as a ridge of high pressure is trying to build in. There's still going to be rain all the way around Prince William Sound. Cook Inlet's looking fairly dry. Showers around the western Alaska Range, all the way out toward the YK Delta and into places like Bethel. A little bit further north of that, rain and snow showers become a little more likely with the temperatures, and then across the central and western chain areas of light rain and fog are expected there. That's a look at your surface weather. Here's what happened today. 40s and 50s for southeast. Another mild day for you with the capital city close to that 50-degree mark. 45 in Yakutat. Upper 40s around Prince William Sound to mid 40s around Seward today. Kenai saw 51. Anchorage was close to that. 43 around the Matanuska Glacier. 52 around Gulkana and Glen Allen. As you move up the Parks Highway, 53 around Talkeetna today, 63 at 1 o'clock around Fairbanks. Boy, that is hot. 63 degrees. A beautiful day, I'm sure. But wow, already 63. 58 around Eagle, 45 in Fort Yukon, 14 in Anaktuvuk Pass, and teens and 20s for the North Slope. Barrow was 20, 27 in Kaktovik, 28 in Kivalina, 25 for Shishmaref, and 45 in Nome. Also talking about some warm air moving off through the Norton Sound region. 30s for the coast, 50 around Galena today, 52 in McGrath, and you can see the heat moving all the way down the Yukon Valley. 45 around Antioch, 36 around Ammonok, and 53 in Bethel, with St. Lawrence Island around 21 for Gamble. Mid-40s for St. Paul and St. George. Same goes for Kodiak Island. 40s and 50s for the Alaska Peninsula. Sand Point was 45. Adak and Atka both at 45 degrees and 39 in Attu. Overnight low temperatures will stay in the low to mid 30s for south central. Most areas are going to stay above freezing. Same goes for southwest tonight. 39 around Bethel, 29 in Nome. Kotzebue Sound temps in the teens and 20s. Most areas well above that though. 18 in Barrow, 32 in Eagle, mid 30s for Fairbanks. So after a warm day today, it's going to be a cool night tonight, but still looks like some areas could hover above freezing. South central in the upper 30s to low 40s. And same goes for southeast. Most areas there above freezing tonight. Sandpoint around 39. High temps tomorrow. Look at that heat. Upper 50s and lower 60s from the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta all the way to areas north of the Alaska Range, the middle Tanana Valley. Back close to 60 degrees. South central in the mid to upper 50s for the Susitna Valley. As you get down into the Kenai Peninsula, it's still going to be mild, but probably upper 40s to mid 50s. Southeast, lower 50s there, including Juneau, Ketchikan, and Annette. The Alaska Peninsula in the upper 40s there. 43 in St. Paul, and low 40s for central and western sections of the chain. Flying weather now shows IFR conditions still there across the North Slope all the way into Kotzebue Sound. VFR for most areas in the interior for the morning hours southeast. MVFR conditions for many locations all the way around the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, and out toward the Pribilofs, where we run into IFR conditions again for the western part of the Nunivak Island region. You'll notice that area drifting south and west, wrapping into low pressure there. That's what that half circle of IFR is showing there. MVFR for the north and eastern Gulf Coast, filling in a little bit more for southeast, opening up for Cook Inlet. And IFR conditions continue for the North Slope. So plan for that tomorrow. Most of your interior passes look A-OK. Here's your pass check, though, just in case. Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass both expected to lean over toward MVFR. A lot worse, though, on the northern side, though, so make sure you're taking that into account tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we expect to see improvements heading for VFR conditions throughout the afternoon. Rainy Pass and Windy Pass all looking good there. VFR conditions through Isabel Pass. Mentasta Pass, we expect to see visual flight rule throughout the day. Tanita Pass looking pretty good. Visual there. And for Portage Pass, obviously with rain still in the area, it's going to go back and forth between MVFR and IFR through most of the day. Count on IFR and hope for better. Chilkoot and White Pass, we expect to see marginal conditions there through most of your Tuesday. Freezing levels, what a mess this chart is, huh? Looks like spaghetti got thrown at the wall. Anywhere from 2 to about 4,000 feet for most areas. Your warmest air stretching from Ammonok all the way up the Yukon Valley. That makes sense with the temperatures we saw for tomorrow's highs, right? And all the way out through Eagle and Northway there. Everything outside of that is below 4,000 feet, and it gets much colder as you head north of the Brooks Range and certainly southward as well, kind of hit and miss. Here's your 4,000 line into Ketchikan, Annette, Craig, and Klawock, and that general area there. So there is cold air to be had, but certainly a lot of warmth developing across some of our lower terrain. Icing potential, we've got a little bit above 6,000 feet from Prince William Sound along the Chugach, Wrangell, St. Elias region, and into some of the higher mountains there in southeast. Or another wave working northward toward Kodiak Island and into the Katmai region, and then across the central Aleutians above 6,000 feet. Most of that's going to be isolated and moderate at best. Here's the jet stream, and you can see this circulation just pounding out of eastern Russia and then looping back on itself. That's keeping all of the really active weather out here across the Gulf of Alaska and keeping really quiet weather right here across the interior of Alaska and north, so not a whole lot of changes expected because of that. South and easterly winds at 9,000 feet, between 25 and 30 knots. A broad south and easterly flow extending all the way from southeast toward the Beaufort Sea coast at about 20 knots down south and 10 to 15 knots up north. High pressure is allowing winds to move offshore across the Bering from east to west at 25 to 30 knots there. Pretty similar story at 3,000 feet. Light winds across southeast at 10 to 25 from the south. An east to westerly flow across the Yukon and Kuskokwim valleys. That's running around 10 to as strong as 25 knots there around Nome. And then south and easterly winds still moving across the southern Bering at 30 to 35. For turbulence then, below 6,000 feet, you're going to run into some occasional moderate across south central and across the interior or the inner channels there across southeast and across some parts of the chain. Not an unusual story there. Below 4,000 feet, watch for the strongest chop near the mountains. And again, across the inner channels there in the morning for southeast, things should improve as we go throughout the day. Let's look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with your marine weather, and don't miss that sea ice edge update here in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor. Thanks to the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health for allowing us to bring you Hangar Flying. I'd like to thank Alaska Public Media for their support of Hangar Flying, which helps keep Alaskans up to date and informed about the latest events happening in aviation in Alaska. This evening, we are pleased to have as our guest Dee Hansen. She's the Executive Director of the Alaska Airmen's Association. Dee, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mary.
As Alaskans, we know the beginning of the summer flying season kicks off every year with the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering. What exciting things do you have in store for the event this year?
Oh, it's always exciting. Can you believe it's year 19?
No.
We've tried every single weekend, and the first weekend in May seems to work out perfectly. It's after ski flying, it's before float flying. It looks like this year, though, if the water isn't out this weekend, it should be after the warm weather. But we always have new and exciting show. We've figured out a way to make that happen as we don't reserve booths in advance. Therefore, it's first come, first serve on booths, which guarantees that the show is going to change every single year. I think we have at least a dozen new exhibitors, which always keeps the show fresh and new and allows new companies to come in. It just seems to work for us very well.
I know pilots like to come and see their familiar old favorites, but it is good to freshen things up every year, too.
Plan to spend the entire weekend. It's Saturday from 9 to 5 and Sunday from 10 to 5. Of course, it's free admission. It has been, thanks to our sponsors. You know, and over the years, you know, costs have increased, but we've been able to keep, you know, the show free to everybody and keep the cost down for exhibitors by our sponsors this year. So they'll be, you know, center and up front, you know, along the static display area. So be sure to stop by and thank them for their support, because that's really how we've been able to keep it going.
For people who are planning on spending a day or the entire weekend, it is a family event, correct?
It is. It is.
And what do you have planned for the kiddos?
Well, we're still working on that. We should be ready, though. But there'll be hands-on things for them to do, of course, coloring, and we usually have a really clever scavenger hunt. There'll be balloons there. We're going to, you know, of course, exhibitors will be involved. This year, we have a very unique program. We're going to have a seminar on Sunday, but there'll also be an area set up for drones. And there'll be some screens there for the kids to fly the drones and everything. So I'm looking forward to participating in that one.
And the drones will be indoors?
Indoors.
Okay.
But on screen, so it'll be sort of virtual.
Oh, very cool.
If I understand correctly.
That'll be interesting, and give everybody a chance to try their hand at it before they go out and buy one or do some damage and break one.
Right.
In the past, we've talked about parking and the issues there. You're still advising people to carpool?
Absolutely. Carpool, you can park on Tug Road, Postmark. There is a shuttle running, you know, courtesy of airline support. They give us the shuttle for both days, so be sure. There'll be designated areas to stop, but a lot of times they'll stop along the road if you just flag them down.
That's the Alaskan way, isn't it?
Right, and there'll be food there. You know, and of course, bring your family. Where else can you go and have your family entertained, you know, for more than a few hours? Of course, we'll have lots of static airplanes on display, everything from light sport to the huge, you know, global giants. You know, UPS and FedEx will have their airplanes there. We're also welcoming the military back, not just with 2 airplanes this year, but 4 aircraft. We've invited the huge C-17,
Oh, wow.
the little F-22. It looks like the KC-135 will be coming down from Fairbanks. And of course, we'll have a helicopter there. The unique classic we have inside this year is a 1949 Boeing L-15, and it's been restored by one of our members. It was World War II reconnaissance, you know, slow-moving, 40-foot wingspan.
Wow.
So it's going to take up a large portion of the inside, but I think it's going to be really cool.
So it sounds like you've got something for every aspect of aviation covered.
We do. And don't forget, you know, you're invited to come, hang out, say hi to your friends, but be sure to take in the safety conference too. We've got some unique seminars, one on what's the importance of backcountry strips and how do we preserve them. We have a couple of sessions on legislative issues, both on the national level with international leaders coming, as well as state issues, you know, access, why we support certain things and why we don't. So be sure to take those in. Of course, the drone seminar in the afternoon. Flying clubs. Airplane ownership is expensive. This is an economical way to have an airplane available and promote exciting flying and friends all at the same time, you know, through a club.
So it sounds like for pilots, you've got full days planned. For aviation enthusiasts and people who are maybe thinking about being a pilot, you got it all covered.
Right. So be sure to visit the website, greatalaskaaviationgathering.org. There's information on coming to the show, what's there, the conference schedule, and everything. So,
Very good. Thank you so much, Dee. It's always a pleasure having you on.
thanks, Mary.
We look forward to seeing you folks at this weekend's Great Aviation Gathering. And until next time, please fly safely.
As promised, a look at the sea ice edge and what's left of it out across the central Bering Sea. Look at how ragged this is. Most of what you're looking at here in the area of light blue is open water. Some of that still has some pieces of ice floating around in it. The main ice pack has been greatly reduced from north of St. Lawrence Island to around St. Matthew Island, and that bright white shape there. And that's what we were looking at on satellite there. There is still plenty of ice in Kotzebue Sound. Open water now in Norton Sound, sea ice free in fact, and any of the ice that's still remaining is rotting there and very unstable, so make sure you're extra careful if you've got plans that think you might want to go out on the ice there. Probably not advised at this point as things are changing rapidly there thanks to the very warm weather we've been having across western Alaska and certainly the Bering Sea. Now as we get into southeast, look for south and easterly winds to pick up from south to north through the morning and then probably ease up as we get in through the day. 35 knots inside of the Dixon entrance from the Clarence Strait and offshore. 9 to 12 foot seas there in the south, 18 foot seas outside of Yakutat, a southeasterly flow at 15 or 35, 15 inside the Lynn Canal from the south with 3 foot seas there. For Wednesday, winds diminish in all areas, 15 to 20 in the south with 3 foot seas on the inside and 12 to 13 foot seas on the outside. 13 to 14 foot seas the further north you go, and inside the Lynn Canal, southerlies 15 knots with a 3 foot sea on Wednesday. For south central, look for northeasterlies coming down Cook Inlet at 20 to 25, west of the Barrens and into Shelikof Strait, 15 knots there with a 3 to 4 foot sea. Southeasterlies blowing into Kodiak Island, they're becoming a little more easterly the further south you go at 20 knots with a 14 foot sea. Southeasterlies will be strong outside of Middleton Island and in the northern Gulf at 40 knots with a 16 foot sea. Easterlies inside of Prince William Sound as high as 25 with a 6 foot sea there on Tuesday, diminishing somewhat on Wednesday down to 5 feet, but we'll keep that easterly flow going at 25, 20 to 30 across the north and western Gulf, and 25 to 30 coming down Cook Inlet, past the Barrens and into Shelikof Strait, becoming more easterly at 30 knots with a 7 foot sea on Wednesday. For the Alaska Peninsula, easterlies all the way up and down, it looks like inside Bristol Bay, 20 knots with a 4 foot sea, 20 to 25 across the Pacific coast with a 13 to 16 foot sea there. and 6-foot seas down the Bering Sea coast a little more with a 25-knot wind from the east. No big changes there on Wednesday. You'll see winds diminish a little bit across the Pacific coast. 9 to 10-foot seas expected there on the 20-knot wind, and easterlies inside of Bristol Bay still around 25 knots with a 4-foot sea. For the Aleutians, north and easterlies from Kiska all the way out toward Attu, 25 to 30 with 9 to 10-foot seas there, and easterlies across the Bering Sea coast, 20 to 25, and seas ranging from 9 to 10 feet across the Pacific. For Wednesday, a little bit more of a northerly turn. Remember, low pressure is coming right across the Pacific coast here, so it's going to drag these winds around. More of a north and northwesterly flow from Nikolsky all the way out toward Attu. Winds diminished greatly here down to 15 knots, still holding on to those 15-foot seas, and southeasterlies blowing into Unalaska and Nikolsky at 20 to 25. Across the west coast, look for north and easterly winds coming down from Gamble toward St. Matthew. You'll notice we're including seas in all areas now thanks to the diminished ice, 3 to 6-foot seas in the north and 5 to 8-foot seas as you head down toward the Pribilofs. For Wednesday, the offshore wind continues, blowing into low pressure well to the south. All areas looking at 25 to 30 knots, 2 to as high as 6-foot seas there in the open water in the north, and 6 to 8-foot seas in the south, including the Pribilofs there with a 25-knot wind for Wednesday. Across the north slope, easterlies across the Beaufort over the ice at 20 to 25, and north and easterly winds coming down the Chukchi Sea from 15 to 25 knots. They're the highest outside of Kotzebue Sound. No major changes for Wednesday. The easterly is becoming northeasterly winds, so it's pretty much the same, looking for 15 to 25 all areas and still over the ice as we head into the midweek. Recapping tonight's weather, a frontal boundary is working up across the north and eastern Gulf. Watch for wide areas of clouds and a better chance for rainfall in those regions. Low pressure south of Kodiak Island by a long shot. You'll see more of a southeasterly wind there and spotty areas of rain and snow showers. A better chance for rain across southwest and flurries and fog for the north slope. That will continue. But something new, a chance for an isolated shower or storm across the Yukon Delta tomorrow. That will continue with showers eastward as we go. Another front moving across the central and eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula as we head into Tuesday, and rain diminishes for southeast. Watch for a better chance for a few storms across the upper Yukon as we head into Wednesday with showers in south central. Thanks for watching. See you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.